Okay, we're live. In the last few sessions that I did, I came across graffiti, and the goal of that was, or I was going through the graffiti tutorial, and the goal was of that was to find a stack that I could use in the back end with assisting libraries in the front end to have a standardized method of transferring data that included things like filtering, sorting, pagination. And JSON API seemed like the perfect case where there's very strict recommendations on how to do these things, how to do sorting, filtering, and all that work, so that you don't have to. And graffiti was great on the back end, actually. My experience with that was pretty good. Um, if I can maybe even get into some of the code here. Um, you define your models. For example, here's my employee model. The schema will be in schema.rb, employees. So here's I've defined the schema, have the model here, and we create an employee resource. Um, and here we're defining which fields from the model we want in our JSON API. And then we define relationships as well. And then the rest of it, it does. Like I can define sorting, I can define filtering, and now I can filter on the title, even though it's scoped and it's joined with another table, and that makes it fairly simple to do. Here I'm sorting on the title. Again, it's part of a different table. Sorting on department name, part of a different table. And I believe you can filter by default on any of these attributes. And when you want to do it on a relational attribute, then you define that particular attribute. And that's amazing. But off the bat, you get attributes that you can define. Some attributes you don't have to send to the server, but you can simply sort on them or filter on them as you need to. So pretty cool. Works amazing. I actually really loved it, and it gives you the magic active record. The problem was Graffiti's recommended front-end library, which is spray paint, hasn't really been maintained in a while. And to be honest, Graffiti doesn't have a whole lot of activity. Like the maintainers are active, but it isn't something that I can sort of delve into and have functional software because the front end library doesn't work, and I don't want to necessarily write something of my own or something that potentially isn't going to have a lot of support around it. That's really my concern. It's probably because GraphQL has sort of won this market. And unfortunately, GraphQL is pretty good in terms of being able to give you the ability to query a graphed API. Is just there's no standards, which means you have to kind of come in with your pagination, come in with all these things. Plus, you get the complexity of GraphQL, which you might not need for most of your projects. Like your tic-tac-toe game does not need GraphQL. Does it need just an API? Not really, but I want it. I want something that's both simple enough and has standards. It's too much to ask, it turns out, because you can't have both. All right, so then I Google GraphQL alternatives because I'm curious what's out there. And I come across tRPC. I believe it's tRPC.io. And I watch a YouTube video. I look at the docs briefly. And I think, okay, this might be great for a stream experimenting with and tRPC and learning tRPC. So that's my goal for today, is just, even if I can get this kind of an example working, set up a server and set up a client. Now, the way this works is you define a router on the server side, and and very similar to GraphQL, you define a query and you have a resolver for it, and you define mutations and you have a resolver for it. Although there's no real difference between a query and a mutation other than sort of categorization. But either one can do anything. And then you export at the end of it the type of your router. So the type of app router is exported as a type. which then gets imported from the server in the client. And this gives you the ability to say client.query, you give your query's name, and now your input is typed. And so is apparently your result. So this should be typed as well, I believe. And this has been catching a little bit of steam as of late, almost 9,000 stars. And you know what? Like I'm gonna try this out. If I like it, I'm gonna start it. So let's jump into it. Let's see if I can make this work, and we'll just follow the setup here. Here it uses React. I don't want to use React. I want to use Vue. It uses React Query as well. So they have written this library on top of tRPC for the client that uses React Query in the background to work. And then they give you your React hooks that you can use. We won't have that for Vue, so we'll probably have to go with sort of this setup here, both server side, like they have Next. It integrates tightly with Next. You're able to define a route here on the server side this way. So again, we won't have that. We'll be defining a straight up Express server on the back end, plugging that in. And it's using by default Zod, and Zod is what they have in the example on the front page, but it turns out that it works with Yup and Superstruct as well. So I haven't used Zod before, but it seems straightforward enough. It's very similar to Yup's definition. And here it seems like nullish probably means that it's optional. And here by default, Yup is optional, but you have to say required, and it seems to be the reverse with Zod. Okay, fine. And then you can chain multiple queries in this way. And this is just the router and the type, but we will hook it up to Express, and that will give us this stuff being hooked into Express in this way. Yeah, so we do Express, create a context, and pass all of that into here. Now, I'm not familiar with any of this really, so this will be interesting. But yeah, let's see what we can do with it. And here's an example. I think, they're implying that some user model you can create in this way. It depends. I don't know how far I'll get. I like the idea of perhaps using this with connects. I love how I type in connects and JS is the first thing that comes up, which is a SQL query builder. And on top of that, we could probably hook it up with Objection.js, which uses connects in the background and builds just another layer of models around this. So a lot of playing around happening today, and we'll see where it takes us. So here's us adding it to an existing Express project. So what I'll do is I've already created a tRPC directory, and the idea here is that I'll have like a front end folder here and a back end folder here, and maybe, and then later on, not maybe, but later on, have a shared folder as well. And I can put, for example, the Zod definitions for inputs in the shared folder, and that can be used to validate input both on the front end and the back end. So it becomes this pretty powerful shared validation system. Okay. I have to look this up all the time. Yarn create new project. I think it's like yarn init. So I'll make a backend folder here. I'll also dgit my front end in anticipation of of getting into that very quickly. And for now, um, I won't really make a monorepo or anything at this point. Might get into that later as I'm discovering this. So once I have a basic idea of how tRPC works, then I can kind of scrap this work and start looking at building a proper monorepo. And then hopefully I can have a backend template as well. And I have some long-term goals as well. Like I want to build out filtering, sorting, and pagination out of the box. So hopefully I can build maybe my own template specifically for that as well. For like each model, have a template that does that. I want to even take it to like bulk operations. But that's thinking too far ahead. For now, let's yarn init. Backend version 1, sure, no description. No enter point, just empty this out. And okay, it's created what node modules? Okay, no node modules to add, but I have a yarn file for my project. And let's go ahead and add Express to this. I want TypeScript on Express as well, so let me set that up as well. And then, I mean, I'm doing this now, but ultimately the goal will be just to templatize it in a repo and then just have it work out of the box. Okay, straightforward enough. I have done this in the past a long time ago for previous project I worked on, but have not done this recently. So I think this setup here is described more fluidly, so I'll just be using this for now. And I probably won't get into this business just yet. I won't be defining any routes. And I'll take a look at the descriptions here for the Express project just to see how they, okay, so they'll like, once I pick it up from here, we're good. App router will be defined here, for example. And so I can import that. And then we should be good. Okay, let's go. Whoops, this is the one I want. And so we'll yarn add express. We'll then add in development TypeScript, TS node mod for starting the server and managing that, which is great. And I'll just copy these here. And then we'll do a TSC init, which oddly enough doesn't seem to be indicated here, just as create the tsconfig file. But for our purposes, I will just borrow that here. I can do yarn tsc dash init because I have TypeScript installed for this project. Whoops, I don't have a Git repo yet. And that should give me a tsconfig with a lot of these things commented out. But in order for us to have tRPC working, I will have to modify this later. I'm gonna make, I'm gonna get in here, get add, get. Okay. And then I need to do some more setup here in terms of like building, starting, and so forth. Okay, using nodemon to do so. Let's do that now. And I'll copy this, but I'll modify it very quickly. And yeah, that's fine. I think I want this to be source really. And then this is fine as well. I'm just going to call this dev. So yarn dev will start source server.ts. And then, yeah, this stuff I'm not really going to define in this way. I'll just, let me add a server TS and add express, and we will initialize the app. Export new app.server. Let's actually quickly see what we do here. And oops, is just express, and then we'll do app.listen on 4000. Why not? And this should be enough to give me just an empty server. So if I yarn dev here, this is the server. Like I haven't defined any routes, which is probably why I'm getting this. So that's fine. And then we'll go ahead and define a, we'll add Zod and the server for tRPC and define a router here. So I'll just call this router.ts. And yeah, I guess these won't do anything, but that's fine. And I can probably have this just in a router file. And I'll just have both of these return the same thing right now. And the idea being, yeah, eventually we'll have this work. This line does nothing, right? Except the idea that this is an input string, which is cool. Okay, so you get the context, you get input, and you get type. Context I get, this is for, you know, if you have like a current user auth or any things like that, you can put in the context. And okay, well, let's see how this goes. And we're exporting our app router here. Fantastic. And then back in our server.ts, let's build this out. Really just copy paste it. Not really building out anything at the moment. And let's make sure that we import. So this is the adapter that I have. And it's giving me all destructor elements are unused. And in this case, I guess really there's no context. So the context would be here. And is just an empty object. So really, I'm just gonna do this. This is a function which is really returning an empty object, and that empty object is my context. And here I can I do this? For it to be happy. So rename that into this. And so on the underscore, lets it know that it's not going to be used. But this is express request and this is express response. And then it's doing this tRPC.infer, but they haven't imported tRPC from anywhere. So I will need this. Okay, and that gives me my context type, but they're not using that context type anywhere yet. So the idea is probably that this gets exported somewhere. So if I did something like current user, or current user ID, sure. I am assuming that this will have that current user ID, and it does. Which is why it's inferring the type based on the type of this fellow here. And then let me see how that ends up working out on the other side. And then let's just import. I was hoping to just import app router, but I can't do that because I didn't export it. I can just export this here. I don't have to do that. And then I should be able to import that here. Perfect. I could probably, I don't want to comment that out. But let's say I export it because it's not being used anywhere. I wonder if this request will now, the context is unknown. And I would have probably wanted this context to be context because I'm not going to type it. So how is it going to get the type? And we could probably look that up here later, but for now, it's probably not that important for this test. And that's it. Now I should be able to do something like this and get that back. Cool. Let's see if that is good enough. Almost. tRPC get user input unexpected token I and just in position. I don't have I have an error here. I don't have an error here, and I wonder if there are some plugins or some settings that will put the error on the server side. So let's quickly take a look. Maybe it's an integer that's expected. No, it is a string. And nothing doing here. So let me see what happens if I just do this. No query procedure on path. So then let me do this. Get user. Let's get into a router. That's our get user. Let me copy this entirely. Okay, get user, and then input, I'm passing in a string. Unexpected token I. So that might be this I here. So if I say hello, that's unexpected token H in JSON. So it's expecting this to be, oh, okay. I think it wants it to be a string. All right. So now that's working because it wants it to be JSON, which means, right, because the input will, like for example, if we had defined this, for example, as z.object, and I believe this is how we would do it, and I can say ID here, close off that object, and we're saying the input is an object now, similar to here, right? It's an you created with the name, you don't pass in an ID, and here in the case, you pass an ID. So then we would expect something like this, ID. I'm gonna say, hey, so it's different. And yeah, that's not JSON. That's JSON. That's not a knife. That's a knife. And in this case, I would probably do something like this so that we're not getting this ID business here. And there we go. Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, amazing. And then create user really will be the same. And I suspect that I should be able to do something like this. Create user, and the input will be name. No query procedure. Right, so this is a space for a query. So let me go take a look to see what the mutation would look like. It needs to be a post. Got it. So really the difference is that on the server side, mutations are post and queries are get. Okay, great. I think I'm ready to have this be tested with an actual front end. So let's do that. And I will commit what I have thus far. And here I've added a router and a server. Okay, so we have a beginning of a sort of a bare bones server here that we should be able to use with the front end. Before I get there, I'm going to quickly just look at the context. So this is the router, tRPC.router, which is this. And the idea is that your context would be here. So here's the server, TS, and I don't want to have sort of this back and forth. So really, yeah, I don't know. Like this is importing here. So can I just import this and will it be happy? I don't think something should be like, hey, like this is not gonna work. And at this point here, because I've put in the context here, I should have the context be typed now, which is great. So that's how that's done. And that's sensible. And in this case here, in this example, they're, getting some user from the header and getting header authorization details here and token decoding and so forth, so on. And hopefully this works well for us and we get that far so that we can do something like this. Okay, let's get to the client. Oops. And what's interesting here is that we will import type app router from the path of our router file on the front end side. And we'll do that wherever we need, like essentially, okay, so we'll do that as we create a client. And then we're able to query or mutate. Cool. So this, I mean, we should be done pretty soon if everything is straightforward. Okay, so what I will do is I will create a tRPC file on the front end. tRPC. I'll just live in the main folder. And let's get that. So I'll need to install the client. So I'll need this. I like how in their example they have 4,000, and then for the server, and they put 5,000 here for the example. And then, yeah, I mean, there's no reason why I can't just do this straight away. So might as well, and that will just give us some test. And this should pop in right at right where we need it. So this is interesting because I changed the type. Okay, first let's fix this, right? We are going back one level, back another level. Let's go into the backend source and get that from our router file. And will it like it? Does it work? Yep, it takes me there, and I have my type here. Fantastic. I still need to install the tRPC client, so let's do that here. And then I'll start the server. Is that it? So let me take a look at something here. I mean, this should have said, oh, there's an error because that's my context. I have a record get user procedure, and the input is ID string. It's not this. So here I would have expected there to have been a type error already, and the fact that that hasn't happened is unfortunate. I might have to do something like function main, sure, why not, and dump this in here, and we will async that and format it, and we'll just call main over here, although that's not the reason why. So I'm not thrilled that this is not giving me a type error. And this, what if I change this to Lala? Also not giving me any type errors. My expectation would have been that based on the front page here, that I would be getting errors. Maybe because I installed tRPC client separately. Let me just restart Vim, make sure that everything is loaded in terms of the language server, and see if that was a problem. Ah, okay. When I was reading this before, there are a few TypeScript setups or setup that needs to be done in TypeScript config. I don't know where I saw it. La 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 la. Okay, custom header. I don't know if it's still true. Like I would have expected to have seen this here. So let me just. It's not here. It's not here. I mean, I wouldn't expect it to be in any of these places. Okay, we don't. PCP specification, subscriptions. Should take a look at that later. Express. Caching, inferring. Where did I read it? Okay. So that's fine. I don't know if that's the reason the typing isn't showing up. Okay, I don't want that. tRPC tsconfig. That isn't it. That's just the tsconfig for the project. I guess maybe I'm just wrong about that. No, nothing doing there. Let's quickly look at the example apps. Okay, and let's take a look at the tsconfig here. And let me just see if there's multiple tsconfigs. No, there's just the one. And then backend tsconfig, just looking up here. Target shouldn't matter. Lib is fine. Allow JS. Skip lib checks. Strict. I thought was important. And we have strict. And then strict null checks. So let's bring that in. Force consistent casing in file names. So that's already enabled. Some of these might just be just for next, and not really for So let me just take a look. tRPC. Okay, this is probably where I saw it, which is enable strict mode. If you want Zod for input validation, make sure you have enabled strict mode in your tsconfig. And I wonder why they have this in the usage with React, but not in the client. So that's fine. This is where I had glimpsed it earlier. Okay, so let's I've done this now on the server side. Let's do this on the front end if that's not the case. And strict is true. Whoops. Strict is true, but what I need is strict null checks probably. Although I don't know why that would matter. But what do I know? So not getting those errors. I'm getting this. So import type. Okay, so this is probably why it's happening. Okay, so let me do something like this. Let me, if I do this, so I'm getting get user is being auto completed for me, and then here, it's args any, which is not what I was expecting. Okay, that's fine. Let's just run it. And I'm gonna run it like this because I expect to see an error in both of these actually. And then I'm not sure whether this will remain an error. This does like export type. It's not a default export or anything, so that's not that problem. Type of app router, we haven't done anything different from what we had wanted. The other thing I want to quickly see is this here as well. For example, if I did this, args is any, which is why I'm not getting any errors. And I'm not sure now whether that's a result of um, the strict business. Oh, if it's just strict true. Like it's not both of these. Because here it says if strict is too much, then at least enable this. Make sure you have enabled strict for Zod input validation. Okay, got it. What I haven't done is added Zod to my. No, no, that shouldn't be. Sorry, I thought maybe it was because I needed Zod uh, on the client side, and that doesn't seem to be the case. So because like um, there isn't this, and this seems to still be on the server side, right? Because it says, hey, add tRPC to existing React project, add Zod here, and if you want Zod, the Zod business, add strict null checks to the server side, and it doesn't say anything for the client side. So let me, and I'm spending like way too much time on this. Strict is true, like it's true. There isn't, there is a node, but that's on the front end. There's just one TS config on the back end, and it's strict. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Um, skip lib check is true. Okay, I mean that's a downer because that's really one of the key points of using this. But that's fine. That's fine. We'll figure it out. Let me run the server here and see whether we see any errors, any attempts. Oh, of course we're not going to because we haven't included it. So main.ts, and let's import tRPC. And now I'm getting a CORS issue, so let's fix that. Express CORS. Okay. I can start that. And then server.ts, we will import CORS. And then we will use it. And we get that here. App.use CORS, not CORS, CORS, and save. And that should restart our server. And it doesn't like it because, did I spell it wrong? No, it doesn't like it because it's not typed. All right, I didn't solve the types. So let's do that. Okay, it likes it and it stays. So if we come back here and refresh, I'm getting the errors for the invalid type object string. Let's take a look at the network tab. And it fails on get user and doesn't go forward. And let's see what the response is. And this is how tRPC returns error information. So the data would be bad request in path get user. Although I can't imagine that this message would be, for example, what what we'd want to show the user be like, hey, no, well that's different because this is failing because straight up like the code is bad. So let's fix that. but maybe let's pass in a number instead of a string for ID. In a second, let's actually do the version that works, right? Let's although this maybe we could still fail. And here we'll do this, and this should work. And it does. Fantastic. And we get an ID, and I'm not sure what that is for. And then we get a result. And first of all, we get an array. And I want to make sure that. So on the router side, we just returned a pure object. And we get an array. And the first item has an ID, and then .result.data. And type is data, and this is the data that we have. So we return this, and we get sort of a lot more around it. I want to see if this is typed. So if I do this dot, oh, well, I could just do this, and it's any. Something is wrong with my setup, clearly. That prevents the typing from happening, and I don't know what it is. It's not this, but I just want to, just want to see if anyone complains here, and it does. Yeah, that's not it. Consider importing blah done instead unexpected token, and I'm not sure what I'm getting the unexpected token, so maybe I can just investigate that. That might be why that's happening. Import expected token. I don't like it when Google just removes my quotes. The old extension. So that's as a result of the extension. As a result of the extension on Svelte, which is no good for me. This doesn't really seem to address anything. This is flow. Asked 4 years ago. Let's not go here. Load an ES module. Okay. No answer. And this is some site that parses Stack Overflow, I think. But sometimes they parse the answers or useful answers, although I'm not really seeing anything here that might quickly indicate an answer for me. And that's the first few. Import a type, unexpected token. Parsing error. My suspicion is that that might be related, but it might actually not be. What happens if I just do import? That's probably not great because I'm assuming, so I'm not familiar with import type, but I'm assuming import type imports just the type and not any code in that file, because we have other code in that file we probably don't want on the client side. But that doesn't help any here. And I don't see any. So I still client.query. I still see this. right? But I don't see any types for. So there's probably some setup that I'm missing, because even if like it's not there even when I do this. So this does have that type here. Right, so I'm not missing anything here. I've added the context as well. And although on this side, we shouldn't be seeing context. What's annoying in some ways, because I'm seeing ID string here. And I'm seeing, I don't know if this should be like ID string name string. Actually, I don't know what this is. And here in the mutation, I expect something similar. Oh, no, like these are probably something completely different. And I can check that out here, right? Because if I change the name, for example, to Tihi, and change this to we, this fails straight up, so that's nice. But we knew that would work. We, on this side, let's take a look to see if, okay, no, that was correct. So this ID name is probably related to the call itself, and this we is related to the parameters that we pass in. So what's the deal? Why is it not typing? This resolve is, oh, that's the result. ID name is the resolve. I was like, what's ID name? What's ID name? It's right here. And again, witnessed by hello. And here on the mutation, I expect to see, at least when I do it again, I expect to see, I would have expected to see low here. Why am I not? Oh, I need to scroll down. This doesn't have everything in here, so it would be over here. Okay. So I know the types are there somewhere. They're just not being called as a result of how this is set up. And it might be a result of it could be a few things. It could be the version of TypeScript that I'm using. It could be my TypeScript plugins that I have. Oh, this is a pure TS file. This is not a Vue file. So I thought, okay, maybe it's because of the Vue plugins for TypeScript that it's not working. So that is probably not the case. So it might be the version of TypeScript that I'm using. And so let me see what that is on the back end. 474. And let me see what it is on the front end. It's not 474, clearly. So let's modify that. And let's yarn away. Okay, yarn dev. Again. And again, just to be safe, I'm just going to restart. This would be amazing if it just works. And it doesn't. So it's not amazing. It sucks. And I mean, I'm getting the Wii and all that stuff here, but it's not typing. I really was hoping this would just work magically. So let's bring this type back now that I've changed the TypeScript version. And that still appears as an error. Okay, so let me see if there are any tRPC GitHub issues somewhere. Move fast, break nothing. I like that. I am for it. So let's see if there is import type. Let's search for unexpected token. Let's search for, well, let's just read. Oh, it's too many. View? No, I don't. I suspect that won't be the case. Client. Okay, let me check my version of tRPC. Particularly on the front end. tRPC client is 9.2.6, although there seems to be a version 10. I can't imagine that's what's causing the issue. There's no releases here. Okay, releases here. And there isn't a 10 anywhere here. So, I mean, this is the latest version. Unless something is broken in these versions. Or had broke recently. Fixed TypeScript warnings for TypeScript greater than 4.6. Yeah, like I don't see anything here that would yeah, like there's nothing happening here. But maybe it might be the case that the TypeScript is in fact too new. Let's just double check. First, I mean, there'd be no clues here, but I'm just looking to see if there's something particular that stands out. Okay, we'll look at that in a second. The other thing is TypeScript version. Yes, of course. There's Babel and a TypeScript ESLint. Maybe I need those enabled. I think I do have TypeScript ESLint on the server side, on the client side. Oops. How did this happen? Sorry, front pack, TypeScript. I don't. Okay, so let's put a pin in that. um, maybe maybe these things are coming in through the TypeScript ESLint plugin. I doubt it. I doubt it, but that may be the case. And TypeScript is 444. So let's not mess around. And I want same thing on my back end. Oops. 4.4. No magic, unfortunately. No, that's not it. It's just argxany. Okay. Okay. What else? ESLint config prettier, ESLint plugin prettier, ESLint React, ESLint. And then we have ESLint RC. So let's get things set up accordingly here. I probably won't have ESLint pop up here because it's and this is on my front end. And like I set this up, right? I set this up according to what? I don't remember. I think this is the default, mostly what we get. So let's see, recommended. There's the pure ESLint recommended, that goes away. React recommended, we have Vue, React hooks, and prettier recommended. So let's mimic this. And so I'll probably need the particular plugins for that. And unicorn case name. I'm trying to see if there's anything particular here that it would need to be off. Return type, boundary types, prop types. Okay, that's React. Okay, and then it's also this, like my parser is TypeScript ESLint parser, which we'll need to change. And I might have to redefine my project as well. I don't think this is it. I don't think this is it. But it could be. It may well be. So let's see. No, only test and unicorn. We're not using those. And tsconfig ESLint JSON. We might have to copy some of that. Okay, I'm going to bring in the parser options as well. And then let's take a look at ESLint. Oh, okay, well. I don't think I need to do that. Do I, this, all this is doing is like, you know what? Okay, fine. I'm not gonna, I don't have, you know, I can't. tsconfig.eslint.json. I'm not gonna argue, you know, right now, I just, I want to see if I'm able to get lucky. Okay, so we have this. That's fine. All right, all right, all right. No, that's not gonna work. What is this? Like, this is not, there's no ESLint.rc. I don't know if that does anything. So we're just in a, we're in a mess. Hey, nice, NVMRC. Okay, I'm gonna have to install a few things. I'm going to have to install and these might be server-side settings, although I did see some React stuff in there, so that's fine. And so I don't ESLint config prettier, ESLint plugin prettier. So, okay, you know, okay, let's do it. React unicorn, we don't need. Prettier, okay, fine. Yep, TypeScript plugin. This is our parser as well. That seems to be mostly it. There's this Babel business, which I don't think is relevant here. We're not using Babel anywhere. Okay. This really doesn't impact the server itself. The server will run just as normal. Really, it impacts the LSP server. So let's come back here and okay. So I'm no longer getting the import type error up here, but I'm also not getting I don't know why I'm getting those pop-ups. I'm also not getting any errors here. So what is this? It's any. And what is this? Well, it's string because it's looking at the internal one, but this is args any. So no types on the client side. Let's look at the documentation again. Let's actually read what's going on here. You can directly call import types from the server into the client. This is a vital part of how this works. Import app router. So let's yeah, I got type going in there. No errors, which is nice. Import any TypeScript file on your file system, plus import type can only import types, not code. So there's no danger of accidentally importing server-side code into your client. All fully erased from your compiled JavaScript source. Okay. It's telling us here to create a type-safe client, and the way that we did that was by importing this and then passing app router here. As you can see, type argument, create tRPC client. This returns a strongly typed client instance, but yet not strong enough, it seems. Any clues here? Now this is being used with React. Oh no, with Next. So okay, fine. So we're still server side here. Something about batching, it doesn't seem relevant. Custom header, so these are just headers, does not seem relevant. Usage with React, example apps, and I don't imagine they did like a hey, maybe they did. Okay, so that's React, Next.js, 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 vanilla. Standalone server with procedure calls Node.js. Express server procedure calls Node.js. And then Svelte kit example, good. And Fastify server, that seems like server side. This is the only client. That's Svelte kit. We'll get there in a second. I'm just gonna steal these. I don't, I'm just gonna steal these. Okay, so let's go back ts config. And so yeah, maybe I do need to like include no include here. Okay, so maybe I should do this. I mean, I don't think this makes a difference here. And then for our configs, let's see. And let's get some of these out here. Okay, I'm just gonna get rid of everything else here and just copy wholesale. No questions asked. Okay, some questions asked. I'm trying to see what we get. Okay. So essentially this is what it would have boiled down to. And so those don't belong in compiler options. Okay, I don't care. This tsconfig is now my best friend. Okay. And just looking at the package.json to see TypeScript is 444. We did change that. And they have React here. So are they? Okay, yeah. I mean, it's just one. It's a single file. Import type app router from server straight up. And servers over here. So, I mean, this is server and client side both. tRPC Express router type of app router, create context. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so let's take a look at the other example here. Standalone server. Do they have a client? They do. And this client is standalone, it seems, because I don't see a React in there. Great. They're creating a socket. There's some business with links, which I don't know what that is. And then, you know what? Let's just check this project out and let's see if Let's see if this mutation in this query is typed. Okay, I guess I'm just checking out the entire project. No problem. Examples, standalone server. I'm going to copy this out just so there isn't any I don't know. There might be something. So yes, let's yarn this up. So my expectation is when I jump into server that I will get, so this will just be empty. So like my typing is working is what I would expect. So if I go in here, string or undefined, that's correct. And then input should be an object with title and text. Perfect. And then this type here looks good enough to me. If I scroll down, I should see. Okay, well, I guess I shouldn't see. Now let's go into the client and coming in here, we got our object. And then let's take a look at the query. And it seems like we have name in there. And let's see if it, this is typed. This is clear type. So there's something in this project that I don't have in mind. What is it? And let's see if the response is typed as well. And the response is typed. I mean, this is what I'm expecting, but this is not what I'm getting. So let's go back here. No, let's go back here. And now maybe I need to copy my settings from here. Kind of feels stupid for not looking at this sooner, but I would have expected it to work out of the box one way or another. This is not where I want to be. I want to be here. And they have nothing here. So it's not this, right? So boom, eliminated. It's not this. Package.json, fairly bare bones. It's not this. Right? So then I got to look at my client. Well, let's take a look at my server here. Context, export app router, mutation subscription, blah, blah, blah. And I guess this is what we needed the WebSocket setup. Create server. Let's take a look. No, that should be fine. That's just app.server, app.this, create HTTP server. So they're creating HTTP server bare bones from here. Although that should not impact any of this. So it's not even Express. It's straight up just a node server. Okay, fine. Client, let's get into our front end tRPC. And here's where our client setup is. So tRPC client from client, yes. This linking business, which really shouldn't impact types. Fetch. Fetch. I don't think that's impacting it. I don't know whether somewhere under the hood there's like a fetching something that's making types come through. I doubt it. Unlikely. Client, create tRPC with app router, create tRPC with app router, and that's my client. And then they're passing in links, which does not seem like that ought to do anything. And then straight up I get this hello response. And as we saw in that piece of code, it wasn't any. And we got any here. Okay, so what I want to do is right. So all the okay. Let's do this yarn Zod. Maybe it's just because I don't have Zod on the front end, and that's all it is. Like I did suspect that, but I guess I didn't delve into it too much because the docs didn't recommend it. Doesn't seem to be the case. So no. Okay, so it sounds odd. Okay, so the other thing I'm thinking is maybe I need to. Okay, let's just go back and take a closer look. Zod, WS, node fetch, client, React server. This is standalone. This still installed React. Dev dependencies, node fetch, node mon, TS node, wait, port. So it seems very straightforward. The only thing I see is that these are in the same project. And this file is like not somewhere, it's in the project. And maybe that's a case for it working. Although again, it said, hey, import type works anywhere in the server. So okay, already this is much longer than I wanted. So let's actually quickly take a look at that SvelteKit example. Oh wow, it seems full-fledged. There's like a add table, search. There's books and stores and authors. Author books count, so that's pretty intense. So we got Prisma. We got okay. Because SvelteKit, it's server side as well. And this is kind of handling it because it's not pure. It's not pure. That's my context. This is my router, which is just merging a bunch of these, pretty straightforward, and then type of router is being exported here. Yeah. So the only thing I could think of now is for me to have this and actually have it as part of some file in the front end. So if I was to do something like this, just server.ts up in here, and maybe I can just get rid of that. I don't really need context for this to work. And then what I'll do is I'll install tRPC server on the client side. And what I want to test here is whether the typing isn't working because it's not part of the same directory, or because maybe I do need to have it in some shared. That doesn't make sense. I shouldn't need to have it in some shared environment. So now I'm here, and in my tRPC, oops, I should be able to say /server .ts, and let's see if this still loads for me. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And now I'm getting those errors. Oh, jeez. Okay. It's nice. It is what I wanted. We Lala is an error because I'm expecting teehee. Even though the thing is like over here, it's all, hey, import type keyword lets you import any TypeScript file on your file system. But clearly they want it to be in the same project. Which is not really what I want to do. I actually do want to have separate I want to have separate server client set up. So maybe it does have to be a mono repo setup off the bat. Like you can't just bring this in. And I noticed that they use Lerna. And although this, again, this is not, you know. Do they have a mono repo set up? Okay, we're going to go through one by one. I do not care. Single project, client server. This will be faster. Just read me file. Oh, the project is here. And single project, just server side. But let's see if it exports something here. Scripts, publish config as restricted. So nothing in particular here that indicates how this might work. These are again all server side, which I did copy. So I'm not sure if that is it or not. Okay, fine. Let's go back here, examples again, and next example is Fastify server. Client server in different directories, but really it's the same npm project. It's the same TypeScript thing. So yeah, I'm thinking I need to make a monorepo. So in some way, maybe those files are recognized as being part of the same project. Kitchen sink, kitchen sink. What is this? Mostly nextc things. So we'll just give that a pause. Lambda API gateway. Just want one thing that's like, oh, where client and server aren't in the same project. But I don't think I'm going to find anything here. I'm sure that's kind of along the lines of how all of these are tested, right? Like it's Svelte kit, not just like Svelte front end separated. Yeah, next. Not going to see anything there. And tRPC with Next.js with Express, and I'm going to see the client. Well, we're not even going to see a client here, I guess. But cool, it creates open API, which is nice. So it does act like a REST API. Oh, sorry, as a HTTP endpoint API. Why does it need to be part of the same project? So just as a thought, I want to see if project here, if I go into front end and my ts config, whoops, let's just front ts config. So my ts config files are these. The CS link is probably not doing anything. Node.js. This is my main file, and include a source. So just it's not just like it's in the same node directory or whatever. So it's got to be in the include for the ts config, which means I should be able to pull it in from the server side if I include that here. I think. So let me let's just think about it. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Of course. Okay. I'm hoping this is it, and this way everything sort of coalesces in my mind in a very simple way. So, and we could test this out. So if I go tRPC in my, I don't know how to spell tRPC. So this is working, right? This should come up as an error as soon as the LSP server is loaded, and it has. Fantastic. I'm going to do this. I'm going to not get this from the source directory. I'm going to get it from a different directory. So this should error out for me. I don't know why it isn't. Yeah, it is. It should error out, and I'm not. Everything's an error in this case, I guess. Why? That should be fine, but it shouldn't be typed. So let me do this, and it doesn't know. It doesn't know because this file doesn't exist. Although I don't know how it knows get user. Oh, probably because we're passing it in, and that's what it's using as. Okay. So now I have server.ts in my front end in the source folder. And I'm just going to move it to one folder behind. And this is into a folder where it's not being used, right? So I'm going to quit just to refresh, just in case. So now this should come in fine, right? Now I'm getting app router. This is coming in well, and it works. Oh no. Okay. I was hoping that it wouldn't work, and so my mental model would be correct. But it works. Okay, let's go. Why stop here? Dear reader, why stop here? Let's put this straight up in here. And let's go. This won't work because this is not, the server's not here anymore. Well, it's a shame. Yeah, that's a shame. That's not gonna work. But maybe let's try out what I had in mind anyway. Because that mental model might still be correct based on some other things. So my autocomplete does not want to work. Unfortunate. This is in my back end, so that is working. And now it wants to work. So did I have to include the server? Let me delete this. Get out of here, come back in. Well, this is frustrating. If this works, which it does, now back with my router here. It's because I didn't have tRPC server on my client side. That's weird. Just quitting and restarting just to make sure that if this works, I'm just going to be like, what's up? It doesn't work. So I need the imports that are in this file, I think, to be present in my client app, which is not a problem for most tRPC projects, probably because, again, they're like Next and SvelteKit and Nuxt or so forth, where everything is just one repo. Sorry, not just one repo, but one... like the server is part of the package.json on the client side because they're all the same. And now when I... So... but let's see if I can still make sense of it by trying something else. So if I go on tsconfig here on my front end, and what if I include here backend source router .ts, just this one file, just like this. Now is that enough that tRPC server is on the like backend server side for this to work? Dear reader, it is not. It is not. So let me just take a look here to see if I missed something in the documentation. Vanilla client, I assume that this could be entirely separate from, but they don't have any, like, you know, install the client, and because this is the only thing that we do here, which is kind of implied. What happens if I bring back the server? So let's first make it work. And it works. And then let's go back into my package.json and remove Zod, because Zod is part of this, right? So okay, let's yarn it out, and then let's come back here and reload. I'm trying to see what exactly it needs. Okay. I don't know why my Vim is doing this. Right, define router. So I'm gonna introduction. Oh, okay. No, it's my fault. It's my fault. Because it says here, no, for making types of your client, install in your, so it says this install in your server code base. It says this install in your client code base. So it's separated anyway. Like I didn't, it's like, hey, if you're using React, use this. And if you're using Next, use this. So I don't believe I'm off base here. And again, this is like a very all this is server side, right? There's no like client.ts on here, so we're not seeing the flip side of the values come through. Okay. 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 Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to think if there was like a way to make this work, because I don't know that tRPC server should live on the client side, but I think it needs to. And I don't understand exactly why. One more thing. Just gonna try before I end this stream. So what I'm gonna do is install the client on the server side, but not the server on the client side, and see if that makes any lick of a difference. Okay, so front pack. Let's remove the server from here, and let's ensure that it stops working. And now typing tRPC is not yarn dev, yarn. And it stops working. So this should be any now. Okay. And then let's go into backpack and let's install the server. Why not? Let's install the client on the server side. Why not? And in this case, I'm gonna have the yarn here. And there's no reason why this ought to work. And indeed, it does not. So really, that's it. That's I just have to install the server on my client side and still be able to do this. Now, it just worries me on like what else I need installed on my client side that isn't the server side. So no, so the docs don't clearly indicate this. Server on the server code base and client on the client code base. And I don't think what I'm doing here is like off base in any way. Like it's I don't think I'm doing anything non-standard. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's it. I'll probably just, create a separate video for an end-to-end on tRPC and just getting a super simple setup in 2 different project directories and have that work. So let me just end this in a working straight, in a working state, not straight. Uh, so back and let's remove the client here. Front pack, and let's add the server here. And really that's it, I think. And now I can yarn here and here. And if I go into tRPC and reload, I get my types. We should have been here about like an hour ago. And now if I change this to tee, I get this. And now let me actually start up the servers and make sure that that is working. And I probably didn't do 50-50 here. Okay, and now both of those should work. Okay, and what I'll probably do is the next time I'll probably just try and hook up. So hook up database. Oops. Database with tRPC server. You know, connects objection. So that's sort of what I'll tackle the next time. And then let's have actual data all the way from server, all the way from database go into the client. And then, okay, I don't want to just add nothing. And then create filtering / sorting / CRUD by default in quotes. And one thing I will do just for learning purposes is to take a look at this FeltKit example where they have lib server tRPC authors bookstore, so that I think they had a search in the authors. I'm just curious high level how they're doing that. Find many, select these fields, count, select books. So it's doing like a where first name contains input or last name contains input. So it's just doing an input thing right off the bat. So no kind of intense filtering here. Okay. Okay, no problem. And then, so yeah, there's no sorting from the server side or anything happening here. Cool. So you can add transforms into Zod, and Zod will take care of some of these things for you. Cool. I didn't know Zod does that. I think Yump would probably do that as well, but I didn't know that. And then I'm assuming that if you pass in any extra data, that probably won't come through. And then save is just doing update or create. So there isn't a indication on whether it should be one or the other. Okay. All right, I think that's it for me. This is probably what I'll play around with, and instead of using Prisma, I'll use objection. And I'm curious to see what the result of this is. Okay, cool. All right. Catch you next time. Maybe even later today if I'm bored or sleepy or whatever.